Hi guys. Hopefully you can hear us.
This time?
Yeah, this time. Hopefully we don't have the trouble we had last time. So we're doing our Jan Marini live. So Jan's gonna hop on shortly. I see.
Yes.
Marini Skin live.
There we go.
All right. Just staring. Today we're gonna do a live Q&A. So we want your questions.
Hi, Mel. Hi. Who do we? Okay, who do we have with us today?
We have Brooke.
Hi.
I'm sorry. What?
This is Brooke.
Brooke. Hi.
Yeah, she was with us last time.
Yes. So
Awesome.
good to see you guys again.
It's great to see you as well. I'm gonna see if I can turn this up a little. It's a little quiet on my
I'm
end.
gonna adjust my chair here. Okay. Anyway.
How you
Great.
been?
I've been good. Thank you.
Good. Getting accustomed to Vegas?
I am. I'm loving it.
Awesome. I love that. Good for you. Better than what we got here. I don't know if you can see the
Oh
snow
yeah.
piles
I
out
can
the
see
window.
this. Oh my God. I can see all the snow
It's
out there.
wild.
No,
Absolutely.
we had it's about the same as Northern California as far as cold weather. We had some weather that went down during the day, and I guess probably upper 40s.
Yeah.
And now I think today was supposed to be around 79. So February going into March. March is kind of like it can start to get into 70s and 80s, and then it can also go back down. It's a little bit, both ways. That's
Absolutely.
my
Not
understanding.
dealing with this.
No.
That's awesome. So I was telling everybody we're going to do a little Q&A today. So we would love questions to come in. We did compile a really good list of questions. We sent out some emails looking for some feedback. So we'll go through those today. I'm excited, so excited about all the new products that are out as well.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about Night Zyme. We're going to be talking about NeuroSmooth. We're going to be talking about Reboot. And then again, want to get questions.
We love it.
Anything and everything.
I know. Do you want to give us a little rundown on the new products before we get into the
Okay,
questions?
so let's start off with Night Zyme. Night Zyme is a product that you guys will be obsessed with. All these products you'll be obsessed with. But Night Zyme falls into the category of an overnight mask. But it's actually very different. So overnight masks are a really popular category, but typically with an overnight mask, it's just more or less a heavier version of a moisturizer. So you wake up in the morning and maybe your skin feels more moisturized, or you feel like, oh, I have more of, a glow or something like that. But it's not really therapeutic. Now, Night Zyme is very different. Night Zyme is a proteolytic enzyme. Proteolytic enzymes can go after dead or diseased tissue, but they can't hurt normal living tissue. And I talk about this when I talk about Clean Zyme and Skin Zyme, which is a huge favorite. Now, this does not replace Clean Zyme and Skin Zyme. So to give you an idea of how gentle a proteolytic enzyme can be, a lot of our docs, when they do laser resurfacing, and the skin gets to, day 2 or 3, and it's still all flaky, and you've got all of this, what they call particulate that's left on the skin, they actually will have patients use this, and it will not hurt the tissue that's not even healed yet. Now, could you imagine if you took raw skin and did a scrub on it?
No.
Oh my God.
Absolutely not.
So it also has other benefits. This is something that's a little weaker than Clean Zyme and Skin Zyme. So Clean Zyme and Skin Zyme is still used, whenever somebody wants to get that extra resurfacing. But you do this every night, and you don't necessarily, I always tell people it's not going to really kick in for, like, I don't know, it depends on the person, but I'm going to say 2 or 3 days, because you wake up in the morning the first time and you do feel more moisturized and more of a glow. But then once it kind of kicks in, it's like every day is a good skin day, because it keeps the skin absolutely perfectly resurfaced without having to worry about, did I overdo it or I didn't do enough? And it just has that, everybody wants glass skin, and it just has that wonderful glass skin look. And this is the other part that's so great. You put this over the top of everything else. So people will say, well, what if I use duality? Or what if I use it? No, it doesn't matter. You put it over the top. It doesn't matter what the product is, over the top. And it makes it so easy because you could keep this on your nightstand. You could be lying in bed and say, okay, it's time to turn the TV off and go to sleep. Reach over and just put it on right over the top. You wake up in the morning and it's just gives your skin such perfection, and like every day is a good skin day.
It is.
So
Me and Brooke
that's
started
Night
with day
Zyme.
one. Yeah. We were obsessed. Even the first day
Yeah,
after we came in, we're like, look,
No,
that's
as soon as we
amazing.
got it in.
We
And it
sold
takes
all of them, a
it
dozen
takes
of them in 2 days. So yeah,
well, we sold out of it. This is the
yeah,
other thing, guys, you gotta call Mel.
yeah.
And the things we're talking about now, we are stocked right now on Night Zyme, but for example, we sold out of Night Zyme, we sold out of NeuroSmooth. Reboot, we just launched that. So you got to, again, you got to get in there and get it right away. But it just, I can't think of anything else where it takes the guesswork out of it. And it's, where you depending on weather and things like that, should I do this 2 times a week? Should I do it 3 times a week? Do I use my peel pads, whatever? So it doesn't take away from any of those. Now, the next one, and anybody that has any questions on this, again, put your questions in, or questions about anything. Next one is NeuroSmooth. Now, this is something that's very unique and it hasn't really been done before. This falls into the category of a neurotoxin. However, let me define that, because a neurotoxin would be like Botox. Now, I'm going to talk about Botox in terms of 2 different categories. So one is what I call big boy Botox. And big boy Botox is for dynamic muscle movement. So it has nothing to do with sun exposure. If you never had any sun exposure and you wiggle your eyebrows, you do this, you smile, you're going to get a crease between your eyebrows, forehead lines, what we call crow's feet. And Botox works on certain other areas as well. But what it does is that it's artfully injected into that little muscle or muscle grouping, and it temporarily disables them. So all the other muscles keep working. And, depending on which neurotoxin you're using, what brand, it could be 3 months or so. And, and people love that. Now, what we're talking about here is different. This falls more in the category of what is referred to, which is a relatively new way to use Botox, baby Botox. Now, baby Botox is where they dilute the Botox. And then they either microneedle it all over the face, or they kind of do what they call stab wounding or stab injections, where they just kind of inject it superficially everywhere. And that does not go after dynamic muscle movement. Okay, I want to make that really clear. What it does is it addresses micro contractions in the face. So we all have these micro contractions that we're not aware of. But one micro contraction, just to give you an example that everybody would recognize, would be um, goosebumps. That's a micro contraction. And when you get a goosebump, it also kind of turns your skin red because it brings blood to the surface. But the micro contractions that we're not aware of, they happen when we're sleeping, they happen all the time. As we get older, these micro contractions tend to it cause the skin to look not quite as smooth. Pores can be more obvious. The texture, it affects the texture of the skin. So when people get baby Botox, they're like, oh my gosh, I love my skin. It's so smooth. It's baby-like. It looks more glassy. My pores look so much smaller, et cetera, et cetera. But for most people, many people, it lasts only about a month. And it's expensive. Plus, you go in and you get it done. And what if you've got, some pinpoint bruising? And then by the time your bruising's gone, you don't have as long to enjoy it. So NeuroSmooth is so unique because it goes after microcontractions. And one of the reasons that people are so obsessed with it is because they've never seen anything that makes the pores look smaller. Now, our professional site, where there's discussion on this among physicians and some interviews, one physician out of Arizona, a female plastic surgeon who's very well known, she commented, she said, I've never seen anything in my whole career that makes the pores look so small, but it just makes them look, I don't know, just glassy and smoother. And it's just another level up. And I don't know, you guys can share your experience that you've had with it.
I've loved it from day one when we got it. But absolutely, and I almost have that feel like I've been using it under all of my makeup applications as well.
Yeah.
It just has that smoothness to it where it perfects. It just really blurs things out almost. Gives you the very hydrated look. It's a very thin, it's not too heavy feeling.
Yeah.
So makeup goes on really, really well over it as well.
And the other thing is that we get comments constantly that it decreases redness, because when you decrease the microcontractions, it also has an effect on redness. Now, that really makes a difference for individuals that have rosacea. So people that have rosacea, they've got to be on skincare management. There's no cure, we manage it. They've got to be on Rosalie because we downregulate all these inflammatory pathways. But people that I have had on the system and Rosalie who say, wow, I've never, ever gotten this achieved this level, even with medication. And we've heard this at podium from physicians in Japan, as a matter of fact, at medical conferences where they've said they've never seen a drug that works as well as Rosalie. So they get to that level. Then we add in the NeuroSmooth, and they're just like, wow, my skin is even more consistent, it's even calmer. So this benefits everyone. And it's just another one where it's obsessive.
Absolutely. And I was definitely using a little too fast. I went through, a lot quickly.
And have you had much feedback yet from your end users, your clients?
Yes, they've loved it.
Yeah,
Everybody loves it. We do a lot too after post-treatment injections. Everybody goes home with it. They love it. So,
and by the way, there's a part 2 to NeuroSmooth. So one of the things that there's a lot of other technology in there as well, but some of the technology that I included is vitamin K, because there are studies now on vitamin K that are showing that it also has anti-aging benefits. Now, vitamin K, we think about that for bruising, right? But anti-aging benefits, vascular, collagen. So, but that's not the reason I necessarily put it in. It's because if you do get Botox or you get, let's say, fillers, and you have some bruising. Bruising is one of those things. It's not about how skilled the injector is. You just can't see those little blood vessels. You've got this tiny needle, it hits one, you're going to end up with a bruise. And so this, because somebody's using it consistently prior to fillers, it may actually help to prevent or to lessen the bruising. And definitely you're going to have a much quicker recovery. So that's like a huge added benefit. And then the other thing I have in there is Arnica montana, which also would be for bruising, for redness, for erythema. So again, if you're having even procedures done, or you're having microneedling or whatever you're doing, fillers, it's going to make a definite big difference. And really in our physician marketplace, it's that's also been a huge, I'm going to say, factor in them carrying NeuroSmooth. So that's another little added benefit. And again, we have a lot of technology beyond that, a lot of rejuvenation technology. Okay, so next we get to the big ones. Somebody says, how do I get added to receive your email? So what you want to do is, if you're a professional, you can call the corporate office and you can get to the individual that would be your, you know, your account development manager, and definitely you can get on there immediately. And also you would be able to get access to the professional side if you know, if you qualify. Okay, so now Reboot. So Reboot is really phenomenal. I mean, it's exceptional. So most of you guys have actually heard of this, what I'm going to tell you, except it's not presented correctly. So what Reboot is, it is something that comes from salmon sperm. It's not salmon sperm. So people joke, and you see on social media, oh, I had a salmon sperm facial or whatever. No, this is actually the DNA, RNA fragments that are removed from salmon sperm. And even if you were allergic to salmon, this would not affect you because there's nothing else in it except these fragments. Now, this is known as PDRN, which stands for polydioxide ribonucleotide. Big word. You don't need to know that, but PDRN. This has got a medical history that's really interesting, that really validates how profound this is. So for quite a few years, physicians have either put topically on the skin or injected into individuals, into wounds that don't heal. So this would be like pressure wounds, diabetic leg ulcers, which oftentimes can result in amputation because we have less blood supply as we go lower on the extremities, but diabetics are really challenged because they have issues. Sometimes they could get a blister and not even know it. And that becomes infected because there's not the same blood supply or the same ability to heal. And then if you can't get it to heal, gangrene can set in and you end up with an amputation. So that's why we see more amputations in diabetics. So imagine that even topically put on the wound, injected, it completely rebuilds tissue. I mean, this is astounding because when you talk about rebuilding tissue, it's not just, oh, collagen, elastin, we're going to make the skin look better. It's, you think of all the things that make up your tissue in there. And essentially, and I'm going to get a little technical for just a moment, but it has to do with A2A pathways. Now, A2A pathways and A2A is then stimulates, it's like a cascading effect of all kinds of factors and things that can affect rebuilding. But it stimulates something called adenosine. Adenosine is a tiny protein, and when you stimulate that again, it sets up all these rebuilding factors. And so this really is pretty astounding. Now, from there, it started to be used aesthetically in Korea. So it's not legal to inject it in your face here yet. They might start doing it off label, but to actually inject it. But in Korea, they do inject it. And this doesn't mean that Korean skincare is better than our skincare. Believe me, I've seen some gorgeous Korean, beautiful skin, and I've seen some of the worst skin I've ever seen. So I'm going to tell you, as far as technology, because I source technology from all over the world, and we're number one here. But what they would do is they would inject it, and this is about 88% of aesthetic Korean doctors. That's a high number. Literally, they're all doing it. But they would mix it with a filler and inject it with a filler, and the indication is that it actually improves the effect of the filler. But also, some doctors would inject it just by itself. And there's some emerging data that suggests that it may work better than fillers because it's a biostimulant. Now, also, it was being used topically. I spent about 2.5 years or so on this, and I did a lot of research. And there are products that come out of Korea that are PDRN products. You can go on Amazon and find them. And I got to tell you, Some of them don't even list it or list the correct PDR ingredient, or the percentages are very small. We are using the highest percentage I've ever seen anywhere in the world. And this is the first product that's ever been made in the United States, PDRN product, that's suitable for a physician's office. And we have a lot of other technology in there. It's extraordinary. So with PDRN, it's a rebuilding effect. Now, I want to take a moment and I want to differentiate between rejuvenation and regeneration. Okay? So let's just say Mel or Brooke, you guys buy a house and you want to rent it out. And the front of the house, the paint is peeling. It looks awful. The windows are dirty. The grass is brown. So you go and you repaint, you clean the windows, you put green grass in, you put some nice flowers around it, and it looks really pleasant on the front. It looks really inviting and it looks updated. Okay, that's rejuvenation. And not saying that that isn't important, that it can't be profound, but here's regeneration. You go in and rebuild the whole house. Because you could have the house looks nice on the front. Maybe the wiring is bad and it could burn down. Maybe the plumbing is awful. Maybe, you know, just all kinds of things.
Basement is crumbling.
And when you rebuild, it also is going to affect everything about that house. Now, when you put the two together, regeneration and rejuvenation, then it's even more synergistic, it's even more profound. So they're both important. Regeneration, though, is actually more important. And 99% or more of products you see out there are rejuvenation. Peptides, rejuvenation, all the different things you see out there are rejuvenation. We have three things that we, as a company, we have three things that are regenerative. So one is a retinoid. Now, we're not the only company with retinoids, but our retinoid is very different. And I always use the term the right retinoid because you have retinoid receptor sites in your skin, alpha, beta, gamma. It's how it connects with those. It's how it bioavailable it is, how you can tolerate it. And retinoids are the most important thing that you can use in all of this whole category because they actually correct instructions coming from your DNA. That's your software. So if you had a computer and it didn't have any software in it, it would just be a box. Well, if you didn't have these instructions, you'd be a puddle of goo on the floor because there's nothing. Your cells have to be able to have information and they have to remember the information or they can't do anything. You can't do anything. So retinoids are profound because if you take identical twins and they both use the same skincare program and one uses a retinoid and one doesn't, one is going to look 10 or 20 years younger than their sibling. Now, another regenerative technology is regeneration booster. So regeneration booster, and it comes at it differently because when you look at aging, it's very complex, and I'm simplifying it for discussion purposes. But booster has to do with telomeres and telomerase enzyme. They come off the end cap of your DNA. They look like a shoelace. Every cell in your body has a telomere. And the end of the telomere that looks like the end of the shoelace, the hard plastic part, has a lot, is the telomerase enzyme. It has a lot of genetic material, a lot of chromosomal material. So telomeres shorten as you get older. They are fluid, meaning they can kind of get back some length. If you're sick, they're going to shorten. And if you recover, they're going to get longer again. But overall, they shorten until when they get really short, you lose your immune function, you lose your ability to repair, and you pass on. Okay, that's the short of it. Now, along the way, one of the things that telomeres have a major influence on is something called senescent cells. Now, senescent cells are also referred to as zombie cells. So imagine if you had cells that are taking up an area or they're responsible for a certain type of communication, and those cells have lost the ability to do anything, but they still sit there. So you can't work, you have to work around them. You can't, that area essentially is no longer available. So you're losing the ability for your body to function in certain aspects. And imagine when you get to the point where you have lots of zombie cells. So we all have senescent cells. One of the things that science is working on is how do we prevent or how do we get rid of these senescent cells? So it's really critical. And that's one of the things where Booster focuses on the telomeres. And then because of that, it also is helping with the senescent cells. And then third, we have Reboot. Now, this is regenerative. So how I'm going to kind of put this into, because they don't cannibalize each other. They're all very important. And one of the ways of sort of characterizing that, even though we're learning more all the time, is that you have these instructions going out to the cells. Now, are the cells perfect? No, because these instructions, everything that you've ever done in your whole life, everything you've touched, everything you've eaten, every bit of inflammatory kinds of things or toxins, it's all in your DNA. That's why we don't see a lot of this. It takes 10, 20, 30 years to show up, but it's there. So you're correcting instructions, but now the instructions get to the cells and they have to execute those instructions. Well, what if they're compromised? They're executing them, but they're probably not executing them as well. So if you can improve that communication or how those cells are going to respond, that's huge. That's again, regenerative. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about Reboot has to do with GLP-1 drugs. So GLP-1 drugs are exploding. It's estimated that shortly over 65% of Americans will be on one of these drugs. Now, I think that's great because I think that it really answers some of the issues having to do with, struggling with obesity. However, when you lose weight, your face is going to get a little thinner, right? Okay. That's normal. I know people that have been on GLP-1 drugs and the face looks like it should normally if you lose weight. But then we don't quite understand this. There are some individuals that have a disproportionate amount of fat, and we've all heard about them in the media. So I'm not judging, but for example, Sharon, she was married to Ozzy Osbourne, Sharon Osbourne.
Yeah.
She talks about it a lot. She's had a facelift, and look at her face. The poor woman is just, it's just gone, and it's the way it hangs. And her daughter Kelly is kind of having the same issue. And so there are people that really challenged by this. It has to do with volume. We don't quite understand it. One speculation has been that you may have certain volume defects. By a defect, I don't mean that it's something that genetically wrong with you, but that maybe it's when you start to lose weight, it just emphasizes or stimulates these defects that are already there in terms of where your fat is and your muscles and things like that. We really don't know. But here is the good news. This makes a huge difference in volume. So when I got feedback on Reboot, and this was throughout the whole phase of development and when I had bench samples and everything, you'd hear, oh my God, my skin looks so much younger. It looks my fine lines and wrinkles, the appearance of everything, the pore size, all of that. My skin looks brighter. But every single person said they noticed volume. That's huge.
That is huge.
And so if we can volumize, this is going to help to counteract that. It's going to make a difference. And even people who just lose a normal amount of fat, they would like to have their skin look more contoured. So when you add these things into the skincare system, it's magic. It really is. So anyway,
It's awesome.
those are the new products. And I'm going to just see if we have any questions here. I don't know. Can you see any questions on your side? I'm not seeing them on my side.
Let's see. No, I don't see coming in live, so we can go to the ones that were sent over. So, let's go with How about what products should everyone have in their skincare routine?
Okay. So in a way, that's kind of a trick question. I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you why. So I don't think there's this sort of list of, oh, these are things that are non-negotiable. Because what it starts off with, and everybody should ask themselves this question, and I'm sure Mel and Brooke, you would ask this question, and I ask it just like this. I don't paraphrase it. If there was something you could change or improve about your skin, what would it be? Now, usually, if you think about this, it's probably going to be your number one concern is what you would say first. Like, oh, well, I have acne, or I have rosacea, or I have brown spots, or I wish my pores were smaller. Then ask yourself if there's something else you could change or improve. Now, typically, you're going to come up with 3 or 4 things, and that's your runway. Don't put anything on your face unless you know it's going to address those concerns. No one needs another product. You need a solution. Now, notice I said solution. How many times do we hear lines that say, oh my God, we're results oriented? Well, let me tell you, you can put anything on your skin. You can put Crisco on your skin. You're going to get a result.
Yep.
Everything is results oriented. Everything that you do something, something is going to happen.
It's a result.
It's a result. I don't want a result. I want a solution. Think about how you feel about your skin if you look in the mirror and all of those concerns, your runway is addressed. So it starts off, number one, with the skincare management system, because the skincare management system is the holy grail for everyone. I don't care who you are or what your concerns are. And you see, usually, I know you guys hear it all the time. The next day, people will say, is it my imagination? My pores look smaller, my skin looks smoother already. And it starts there. And then there are the things that you would add to the system. The system's going to help with acne, it's going to help with discoloration, rosacea, appearance of aging, fine lines, and all that. But when we want to take it to a level where we're completely managing your rosacea or your acne or your discoloration, or making a really major difference in the appearance of aging, you have adjunctive products like Duality for acne, or Illuminate for discoloration, or Rosalie for rosacea, or we just talked about some other products too. I always tell people, if you tell me a month from now your skin is as good as it's ever been, the best it's ever been, I can get it a whole lot better, and I can. So again, it's a journey, and people use more than one accelerator. We just don't usually start them off all at once. So there's all of these things that we can do that are very individualized, and that's what you want in your skincare routine.
Absolutely customized, and especially with such drastic seasons that we have here, you know, what you're using in the winter isn't necessarily going to be what
Yeah,
you're using in the summertime, you know.
absolutely
It's really
right.
nice that you can customize and choose and address your concerns so specifically, within staying within the line, knowing it all works together.
Well,
Why we
being
love
here now in Las Vegas,
it.
it's very dry all year round. I'm sure it's probably even drier in the wintertime, even though this summer doesn't have really any humidity. It's very tiny bit of humidity,
Mm-hmm.
much different than Northern California. So when I came here, I had to kind of see how that was going to affect my skin, and then kind of, settle in on what I might modify. And I like, my skin likes Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And I have people ask me all the time, oh my God, how do you get your skin so reflective or so glassy? So what the climate is, whatever your concern is, it's I mean, there's so many options that we have that can address all of that.
Absolutely, and it's, consultation.
Yeah.
That's
That's
what it is.
right. Give them a
Figuring it out.
call. And
Mm-hmm.
they're okay. So they're really well trained in this, guys, and very quickly can assess just through questions what it is that is going to be the perfect sort of journey for you.
All right, let's go. This one I know we talk about a lot. How about what's the best age to start using anti-age products and have procedures?
Okay, so first of all, the best age to use anti-aging procedures is when you're born because you've got to use sunscreen. That's number one. Now, the second thing that goes along with that, and under 6 months, you ask your pediatrician because pediatrician can certainly determine whether or not a certain sunscreen might be appropriate. But then the next thing is, I always get asked, well, what about retinoids? When can they use retinoids? Shoot, babies use retinoids for infant acne. Teenagers use retinoids. It doesn't matter, when we think about the average onset of acne, usually we think, oh, well, 12 or 13 or something like that. But I mean, there are people that start breaking out when they're 8 or 9 because the determination of puberty is not menstruation, it's breast development. And also, do you know that technically, from a medical standpoint, the average onset of acne today is 34 years old, meaning that you could have clear skin your whole life and it could start when you're 34, but that's an average. So it could be later even. It could be, and it can also be very early. But any age, anybody can use the right retinoid, and it doesn't have to dry the skin. And also it's going to not only address the acne, but if you're a teenager, it's going to do a lot to reverse that aging that's been programmed into your skin that doesn't show until you go from an anabolic state to a catabolic state, around 18 to 20. And then it's kind of all that, those compromised instructions start showing up, and that's the aging process. So, yeah.
Awesome.
But now procedures, that's different. I think that you have to be really careful when it comes to procedures. I have nothing against them. But it's so difficult today to go through the procedure maze and figure out, oh God, what works and what doesn't work. So first of all, you have to be careful of fads. So for example, sometimes at a very young age, people might have buccal fat removed. And so now, okay, it looks like you're all sculpted in here. But that removal of that buccal fat actually later on can make you look a lot older, because fat is something that should be repositioned. It should not be removed. It can change the whole way that your face ages. Let's say that you do radio frequency. Now, radio frequency is something oftentimes that they do on its own because it's believed to help tighten the skin. Sometimes they combine it with microneedling. So there's nothing wrong with radio frequency, but if it's too deep, it removes fat. You do not want to remove fat. Trust me on this. And so sometimes these procedures come out and they get a huge amount of marketing hype, and then they maybe 6 months or a year later they say, oh, well, it's removing fat, because it may not be apparent at first, or it may not have come up in the study. And then there's a lot of times people will spend a huge amount of money on procedures because they say, oh, well, this is going to keep me from having to have a facelift. That's not true. That has nothing to do with the ligaments, the underlying muscles, those kinds of things. And number one, there's a difference between good skin and quantity of skin. So no plastic surgery is going to give you good skin. By the same token, good skin isn't going to replace cosmetic surgery. It's a personal choice. I'm not saying everybody needs to go out and do a lot of procedures, but you kind of realistically have to understand what you're going to accomplish. And do you know that today, what is considered the very best age to have a facelift? It's around 40 to 45.
Stop it. Really?
Yeah, because first of all, today, the trend, or I shouldn't say the trend, but the medical science is going toward what's called a deep plane facelift. So there's three types of facelifts. In the very early days, 50s and 60s and all of that, you had basically it was a skin lift, which looked kind of not normal, and it also didn't last at all because you didn't do anything with the underlying muscles. Then when we get into like more into the, I think I'm trying to remember if it was late 70s or early 80s, you got within a SMAS lift. Now the SMAS is under the skin and it attaches to the muscle. And it's a fibrous kind of like sheeting. And so when you pull the fat SMAS up, you're pulling up the muscle. So what happens is the SMAS stretches as you get older. And so you see a loss of contour and you see sagging. So it pulls up the muscle. Now, this was a huge advance, but it doesn't address the mid third of the face. And it basically addresses, so when they're pulling this up, what they're doing is they're pulling up the platysma muscle. The platysma muscle is a big muscle that goes like this. So they're pulling up that neck and that platysma muscle, but it's not here. It doesn't address the forehead, doesn't address the eyes. And so those would be like kind of add-on things. Now, the SMAS, though, there are ligaments and there are connective kinds of things underneath that. It doesn't address that. And with the SMAS, it kind of goes more off to the side. So sometimes if it's not done really expertly, people look pulled to the side or windswept or tighter, even their mouth looks more elongated this way. And I've seen some absolutely exquisite SMAS work, but it depends on the doctor because it's not just following a roadmap. It is really the artistic aspects of it as well. Now, deep plane takes more skill, a lot more training, but it goes beneath that and it keeps everything in run structure. So you're not detaching the SMAS, pulling that up. You're pulling up all the SMAS, the ligaments, everything, and you're doing it vertically. So that's why if you look at, I don't know, a good example might be Lindsay Lohan, or let's do another one, Angelina Jolie. So if you look at pictures of her through the years, she's really changed. She really hasn't changed at all. I guarantee you she's had a deep plane facelift. Just puts everything back where it once was. Now, when you put everything back, what can happen because you've got just a lot more, let's say, deterioration, you might not be able to get it to look like you did when you were 30 or whatever. And so, because otherwise you might have some bunching or you might have something. So when a person is younger, they heal faster, it lasts longer, and you can get it to, I mean, look extraordinary. And so, those are that, and that skincare doesn't replace that. It can. It's not going to get down to your muscles and the ligaments and all of that. But I've seen people that have had some nice work done that look like they still have really old looking skin. So they go together. And it's about skin health and skin longevity.
That was a good one. I like that one. All right. Oh, I like this one. What are the benefits of keeping my products refrigerated?
Okay. So what I usually do is I always ask a question with a question, and I would say, so tell me, why would you even think that you need to keep your products refrigerated? So here's the lowdown on that. You need to have a preservative in your product. And for a while there, not that long ago, it was really popular to say, well, we don't want preservatives in our products. So imagine if I had a pot of food and I put it in the refrigerator to slow down the deterioration. Now I want you every day to go there with a little teaspoon and eat some of that. And maybe the first 3 or 4 days, that's fine. And then day 6 and 7, it starts to get mold. Nope, keep eating it. And then it starts to turn green. And then it starts to separate. It looked disgusting. No, just keep eating it. Okay? So that's what refrigeration does. It slows it down. Now you've got to have a preservative because if you don't and it grows pathological bacteria, you could blind yourself. All kinds of things could happen. So the preservative, if products are made properly, they are supposed to go through very specific testing. So even when our product gets made, the batch is made and everything, we don't get it for another 10 or 15 days because it goes through micro testing, it goes through all kinds of testing, and the preservative is designed to keep that product from becoming contaminated. Typically, the shelf life is 2 years. Sometimes it can be longer, but it should at least be 2 years. Now, when you open your product up and you put your fingers in it and it's exposed to sunlight and exposed to all kinds of things that are in your bathroom, that protects the product. But here's the mistake that people make. They get these cute little spatulas with expensive products. So you're putting that spatula in there. Unless you are completely sanitizing it, boiling it, rubbing it down with alcohol every single time, all you're doing is introducing bacteria. Your hands, hopefully you wash them. But the spatula, I see people that just sits there and people just use it over and over again. So you do not want a product that has to be refrigerated, okay? You do not. You want it properly preserved. Now I'm going to tell you what I think is the best preservative in the world, and we don't use them anymore because somebody looked at a study, took it out of context, and it went crazy, and that's parabens. Parabens are the safest, absolutely safest preservative that have ever been invented. They're natural. They come from raspberries. And I got to tell you guys, if you never put another skincare product on your face, you're getting tons of parabens every day out of the air and out of the food you eat. I'm talking about natural parabens. And the studies that talked about cancer and stuff, they were taken out of context and were very flawed. So we use other preservatives that are good, but I would really prefer parabens. But you need a good preservative. You need products that have been tested for shelf life, and there's no reason to keep them in the refrigerator. Now, with that said, generally products are going to tell you that you want to keep them between temperatures of, let's say, 50 degrees Fahrenheit and like 80 or 90 or whatever. So you don't want to sit them out in your car in the sun in 120-degree temperatures and things like that. But other than that, under normal circumstances, should be fine. See any other questions on there?
I don't see any up here. Have you seen any coming?
No, I've been watching it.
Why is my skin dry if I drink lots of water?
Oh God, I love that one. Okay, has nothing to do with it.
Every day.
Has nothing to do with it. Okay, so you want to drink lots of water because you want to flush your kidneys. Okay, that's important. Drink lots of water. But what determines how moisturized your skin is, your barrier function, and it looks nice and radiant and plump, are the substances between your cells in the stratum corneum. So stratum corneum is dead. Those are dead cells. But between those cells, and you want them to lay like shingles on a roof, or fish scales really organized so they reflect light and look radiant, and you want your stratum corneum to be really, really thin, and you want your dermis to be really, really thick. Your dermis is 80% collagen. So in between these cells are substances which are very, very moisturizing. Mucopolysaccharides, ceramides, phospholipids, and hyaluronic acid. They give the skin volume, they give it barrier function, make it feel nice and moist. And so your skin also it helps your skin to respond appropriately under different conditions. And as you age, you lose these substances, starting around 18 to 20 when you go into a catabolic state. So that's what determines it. Drinking water isn't going to increase those substances. I'll tell you what increases them. Number one, glycolic acid. Tremendously. It's actually chemically considered to be a moisturizer because it increases those substances. Okay. Secondly, retinoids increase those substances. That's why the skin, again, looks more volumized. It looks overall just more radiant. It looks moist. If you're using the right retinoid, you shouldn't have all the scaling and the redness and all that. And there are other things like the PDRN, et cetera, that can make a huge difference in those substances. Okay. So that's what you have to do. Water's not going to do it for you.
I love that one. Um, let's see. How often should I be exfoliating my face?
Okay, never. So exfoliation is a term that generally is focusing on some type of granulated scrub. I don't care if it's the smallest little particles. They create microscopic tears in the skin. It creates inflammation. You're not going to see this, but one of the definitions of aging is it's an inflammatory process. It's going to aggravate acne. It's going to exacerbate your brown discoloration. It's going to exacerbate everything that you don't want. What you want to do is you want to resurface your skin. Resurfacing is different. And you want to do this every single AM and PM. So resurfacing is where we dissolve and dislodge the glue-like substance or cellular cement between cells. It's not inflammatory. They lift off. It's anti-inflammatory. So all those cells are, again, laying in a really organized fashion. And resurfacing also can have other benefits. For example, one of the things we resurface with is BioClear, which is glycolic, salicylic, and azelaic. And that's going to stimulate those substances between your cells. It's going to give you a much smoother surface than if you did a ton of so-called exfoliation. And the molecule in the glycolic is so small, it can get into your follicle. So most things, they don't get into your follicle. You like to think cleansers get in there. Nope, they don't. The molecules are too large, but glycolic does. And when it gets in there, number one, it dissolves and dislodges the glue-like substance or cellular cement between the cells in the follicle that are sticking together. When they stick together, because your follicle has all these dead cells lining the follicle, when they stick together, that's the beginning of the acne process. Doesn't matter whether you have mild acne, clogged pores, blackheads, or really more severe frequent acne. It's all the same process. Starts off with cells sticking together. So it interrupts the process. And also, glycolic acid will thicken your dermis by about 33%. Glycolic acid, I could go on and on, but when you put it together
My
with
favorite.
glycolic, salicylic, azelaic acid,
Mm-hmm.
it's the best thing I've ever seen for resurfacing. So that's what you want to do. You want to resurface. Night Zyme is a resurfacing product. The Clean Zyme and Skin Zyme, both of our peel pads, those are things that you want to resurface the skin that just makes it smoother, but it makes it healthier. There's nothing about exfoliation with a scrub that makes your skin healthier. It compromises your skin. If I line up 10 dermatologists, I can tell you that 9 out of 10, if not all 10, do not want patients using a so-called scrub or exfoliating scrub.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. What time is it?
Got time for probably a couple more.
A couple more. All right. What is the best makeup to wear to avoid breaking out?
Okay, that's a really good question. Now, what we want to do is we want to avoid makeup that is comedogenic. But just let me first preface this with, I don't have any problem with people wearing foundation. I'm not wearing foundation. I love the idea that foundation is optional. If I really felt like on a given day I needed something a little extra, I would use our SPF 45, which you can't tell you're wearing it, but it just makes the skin look so much more polished. It's tinted. Now, everybody should be able to be foundation optional. So foundation, though, can have special effects, and I don't have a problem. What you want to do is you want to make sure you're wearing a foundation that's non-acneogenic or non-comedogenic. Now, here's the good news. Years ago, I used to have a list because so many foundations had things in them that could actually cause breakouts or exacerbate acne. Today, most of them don't, there's not that problem. So whether you like Clinique, whether you like Tom Ford, whether you like Charlotte Tilbury, whether you like Armani, whatever it is, for the most part, they're non-comedogenic. That's the good news. So you can find something that is, really fits what the look that you want. Now, where we still get into some comedogenic products or products that can exacerbate breakouts is some of the compact powders in particular. And I'm sorry, I love MAC. I got a gazillion MAC lipsticks. I love MAC, so forgive me for saying this, but they make a powder, a compact powder that can be a powder or a foundation. So it's like a dry powder and a compact. And when I used to, years ago, when I used to conduct all of the new hire training classes for our sales executives, I could tell first day in the class who was wearing it. It just has a propensity to create problems. So something like that you have to be very careful of. And it has to do with the binders and the things that they use that can tend to be, again, to exacerbate or be pore clogging. So anyway, that's the thing on foundation. That's the good news.
That is very good news, actually. Let's see. I kind of like this one here. Does blue light from computers, tablets, phones cause premature aging?
Ooh, I love that too. Okay, you're going to be shocked at this one. So let's just take the tablets and the phones and the computer. So there's one really good study out there. Well, first of all, let me back up. We don't see blue light. We see only about 50% of the light that's out there. And that's the light that is also in what we call that UVB and UVA spectrum. So that goes from 0 to 400 nanometers. That's a measurement of what we see and how it penetrates. Everything beyond that, we don't see. So the most of what we don't see, biggest part of that probably is blue light. There's infrared and things like that, but blue light is a big part of that. Now, this study showed that if you sat in front of a computer 24 hours a day and absorbed all that blue light, it would be the equivalent of about 5 minutes of blue light at 12 noon. Now, there's no sunscreen that's going to totally block blue light. It's not even legal to say that you block blue light. And sunscreens are an over-the-counter drug. They are highly regulated by the FDA. I can tell you there are many sunscreens that have been pulled from the market, gotten into trouble for making a claim for blue light. One not that long ago that was in Sephora. So I'm not going to tell you who it was, but I'm just saying it's not even a legal claim. Now, let me tell you something else about blue light, why it's so important. We use blue light with aminoleuvolenic acid to get rid of a keratinic keratoses, which are precancerous lesions. We use blue light in various devices for acne. And here's a recent study. This is a shocker. So when they found out that people who get cataracts, and you can have little baby cataracts and still have perfectly good vision and not even be aware of it. But when you get like full-blown cataracts, you are very vulnerable, are much more vulnerable to dementia, Alzheimer's disease. You know why? Because the cataract blocks blue light, and blue light is necessary for good brain health.
Wow.
Okay? So I don't want to hear any more of all this stuff about how bad blue light is, because it's going to be out there and you're coming in contact with it. I don't care if you never look at a computer or use a phone.
Yeah.
And it's necessary.
That's amazing though, really. That's a really good study.
Yeah, it is a great study. And I'm going to tell you, it's actually gives you a certain sense of relief and confidence, because we're so worried about, oh my God, my phone and my computer and everything, and am I, gonna
get the blue
this
blockers
problem
they sell at the store, protect your eyes. All right.
You also want, I'll tell you what else you take in through your iris is sunlight to make vitamin D. So you don't get vitamin D from the sun. The sun is a catalyst. The UV light is a catalyst. So people think, oh, if I wear a sunscreen, I'm not going to get enough vitamin D. No, no, no. Take it in through your eye. You only need just a couple of minutes or something of it. And I will tell you, there are children that have these really horrible genetic diseases where they can't get any sunlight at all. Do you know that they're typically not vitamin D deficient? There's a lot of other ways to get your vitamin D. You don't have to worry, you don't have to mess up your skin. So anyway.
That's wild. All right, it's 5 o'clock. Do you want to do one more question?
Okay, one more.
All right. If I have excessively oily skin, what is the best way to calm down the oil production? I always feel greasy.
Okay, great question. Now, so first of all, let's talk about oily skin. I can't do anything, and there's really not much of anything out there that's going to change the way your oil glands produce oil. But what we can do is we can change how the oil looks. So here's what happens with oily skin. First of all, most people with oily skin still have this dead layer on the skin. So the oil comes out, it sticks to the dead layer, it gets trapped, and your skin doesn't look as reflective and smooth. And you can also sometimes, because that dead layer will shrink, harden, and it's known as increased corneocyte cohesion. That's a medical term. So you can also feel dry and oily at the same time. Okay. Now, when we completely resurface the skin, what happens is that oil doesn't stick in those dead cells. You don't see it the same way. It looks, instead of looking oily, you look dewy. Instead of looking like you're all shiny, you look like you have a glow because all that dead layer has been resurfaced. And so it's reflective. And if I hear once, I hear a million times, even from people in their 20s, how can I get my skin to look more glowy? How can I get my skin to look more reflective? Well, some of the most beautiful skin I've seen is skin that has more oil, but it is not trapped on the surface. So it's very reflective. It looks like glass skin. Do you know how they get some of those pictures with glass skin? They put oil on the people's face.
Mm-hmm.
So everything reflects off.
Yeah.
Hey guys, you're lucky you got it going on. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure you're not having breakouts. So glass skin, everybody wants glass skin. Number one, it is pore size. Okay, or excuse me, number one is a smooth stratum corneum, smooth and reflective, really smooth. Okay, that's number one. Number two is pore size. Number three is an absence of imperfection. So that's like acne or brown discoloration, lines and wrinkles, those kinds of things. And then it's volume and it's diet.
Good.
Yeah.
That was good.
I think we just solved all the world's problems today.
I think we did too. Give us another hour. We could get a lot done. Awesome.
This was fun. I like it. We could go talk about all kinds of different things.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you so much once again, Jan. We look forward to it, and I know
Thank you.
all of
Thank you.
all our viewers love watching it. They always talk about it the next few weeks, so it's great.
Well,
We
thank you,
appreciate it.
everybody. I really appreciate it. I wouldn't be here without you, and I can't wait till next time.
Yes, thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye, Mel.
you.
Bye, Brooke.
Bye.